the decapitation strategy by Israel. Now, decapitation has been used for millennia, thousands of years, where forces feel that, well, instead of attacking the people, let's take the leadership. And when the leadership is taken out, it creates that kind of organizational confusion. So a counterattack may be expected, but not be as strong as if the leader were to be alive. And two, there's going to be legitimacy challenges because anyone who succeeds the leader may not have that legitimacy that the leader had.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to whatever time zone you're right now in. And also the daylight time zone saving time, something which I don't understand. It's changing and the clocks are changing. But anyway, welcome to Middle East Insights platform. And my name is Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary. And today we are going to discuss a very, very important issue, which is the strategic impact of Israel's decapitation campaign against Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, what is happening? 2 days back, the most lethal bombing by Israel was carried out in West Bank and Lebanon. At the same time, US President Biden suddenly yesterday gave a surprise visit to the press. Like really surprised. We all were also surprised. And to talk about that, he is asking Iran not to retaliate and everything. Iran wanted to send a message, or was it really trying to create its own political mobilization? That time will tell. But over the period of time, today is 5th of October. We are just 2 days left for 7th of October, where the Hamas attack took place, and at the same time, the continuing Gaza genocide. Though I think that it is the silent annexation of West Bank and also the very loud carpet bombing of Lebanon that also needs to be added into it. So before we start talking about it, today we have a very esteemed guest. And I'm very proud to have, him here. And we were having a lot of fun before we started recording. So his name is Fidel Amakye Owusu. And he's a geopolitical and security advisor at Riley Risk. He conducts in-depth analysis and reporting on risk environment and security events in various regions using open source intelligence tools and methods. He also evaluates potential threats and risks for his various companies and clients using a proprietary risk assessment system. He has been in this role for 7 months, and he leveraged his previous experience as senior conflict analyst at Conflict Research Consortium for Africa, where he had been analyzing and writing, assessing about conflict situation and actors across the continent for a year. He's also the CEO of DexSec Analytics Africa Limited, a consultancy that he himself founded in March 2023 to provide strategic advice and solutions on security and defense matters in Africa. He has a strong background in international relations and security with a BA and MA in international affairs from University of Ghana. You have to figure out where Ghana is in the map. Then he has also worked as a special assistant to former Ghanaian vice president and at the president's office, where he gained valuable skills in research, project management, administration, PR, media relations. He's very, very passionate. If you'll follow his LinkedIn, you'll see regular, deep analysis with a lot of, graphs and maps. That makes it easier to consume and understand. On security, geopolitics, on his thought on various kinds of peer-reviewed articles, opinion pieces, media appearances is regular for him, public speaking engagements, and many other. So with this, sir, I would like to formally welcome you to our very informal community. But thank you so much for the privilege of your time and presence. I know that we are almost 5.5, 6 hours ahead of you. So we are taking most of your lunchtime away. But let us start with my first question, sir. That how do you think Israel's continuous invasion of Lebanon and its sovereign territory, the attack on Ismail Haniyeh, Fuad Shukru, and above all, Hassan Nasrallah, is it going to solve the crisis, or is it going to further boomerang on Israel and make it worse?
Thank you very much. I'm humbled by your introduction, and I am glad to be on your esteemed platform and to share my views. Firstly, I would say that West Asia or the Middle East is one of the hot spots across the world, and we all know that it has for decades become a fulcrum or a pivot where a lot of global interactions and global competition revolve. So we see the presence of great power politics. We see all kinds of dynamics in the region. We also find a region where we have so much resources in terms of oil and gas. We have populations that are increasing, and then dynamics, and in fact, political religious dynamics. We find Christians there, we find Jewish, Muslims, Druze, and several other beliefs. Even in Islam, we have the various schools, Shia, Sunni, and all that you can have. So it makes that region a very sensitive one. The analyzing of which takes time and prudence, because then you could not just draw any conclusions. However, to the main question, is the Israeli approach, or is the IDF's, the Israeli Defense Forces approach, the best way to solve the problem? And the answer is more like a no, because then these conflicts have been in place for a long time. They fought several Israeli and Arab or Arab-Israeli wars. We've had Hezbollah. The last time Hezbollah had an all-out war with Israel was 2006. It's been some time. And after that, there has been some cooperation. Many people overlook that. But Israel and Hezbollah have cooperated on offshore drilling in the Mediterranean. And these are some of the things that many people ignore or overlook. So it means that this particular event is an escalation of immense proportion that cannot be ignored, and which is gradually drawing the region to a total war, so to speak. Even though I have my reservations when we use the word total regional war in all-out regional war in the Middle East. So basically, I would say that what is happening is more of an escalation rather than a solution to a problem that has been there for a long time.
So, sir, do you, like, for example, every day regularly the Twitter handle of IDF or even the ministers of Israel are saying that there will be a very strong attack against Iran? That kind of manufacturing of consent is being done. At the same time, 7th of October is being taken as a commemorative day for only the Israeli citizens. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying every day is a commemoration currently, and everyone in the region is a hostage. Even those innocent Israelis who are locked up far away from their real homes, in bomb shelters and safe rooms. So why do you think that Israel is creating or manufacturing this consent of attacking Iran? And if it attacks Iran, will it attack the oil industry in Iran?
Okay, so 7th October is going to be a commemorative day, 1 year since that attack, that heinous attack. where women and children were all attacked, grown-ups, elderly people were killed in their rooms. It was heinous. After a year, Israel, no matter how we see it, has proven a point. And the point is, the Israelis do not take their security lightly. So if there was a problem, then many people will ask, then why the intelligence failure that led to the attack in the first place? It could have been avoided. But then, since the Rubicon is crossed, we cannot go back in time to change decisions. And so the argument is that after the attack, what has been the response from Israel? And has these responses been effective enough? After the attack, a lot has happened. We've had Israel invading Gaza and almost defeating Hamas at a higher cost because civilians have been displaced. Many people have died, children and what have you. Infrastructure has been destroyed. Now, you also talk about even Israelis that have suffered some counter-attacks as a result, some knife stabbings and all the things that you can think about. That has happened. When your question was on Iran. Now, Iran is seen by Israel as its worst adversary in the region. And this comes in two. One, Iran has that military capabilities that other adversaries do not have. And two, it has used rhetoric that seem to say that Israel should not exist.
Yeah.
And knowing the history behind the formation of the Israeli state, whoever challenges the existence of Israel will not be taken lightly or will not be ignored by the Israeli authorities. Whichever politician is in power is not going to ignore that, whether being in the left or the right, as we have currently, is not going to ignore that. So Iran has consistently mentioned that Israel should not exist and has even created what we call the court force, the force against Jerusalem, that where they believe that eventually Iran or some force must take over the territory that Israel occupies and perhaps eradicate Israel. That is not settled down well with so many people. Now, some people call it saber rattling, that these are mere words that politicians use. It cannot happen because Israel has that kind of capacity. But as I mentioned, the history teaches us that the minutest of threats would be taken to be a humongous one by Israel. Israel is not going to take any threat to be made in jest. So that is also very important. Now, another thing is that Hamas and Hezbollah have been seen as allies to Iran. So it means Hezbollah and Hamas are seen as satellite entities to Iran in Israel. That's how Israel sees it. And interestingly, it's not only Israel that sees Hamas and Hezbollah as Iranian tools. The Sunni monarchies in the region, be it Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Jordan and other countries, equally see Hamas and Hezbollah as tools in the hands of Iran. And so when Israel started its attacks or started the invasion of Gaza, Hezbollah was one of the first entities to challenge that. And it started with territorial incursions, the throwing of rockets, and Israel for a long time has been using surgical strikes. They call it surgical because they feel that those strikes are meticulously carried out. In the event, we have collateral damage. I mean, civilians also die in the process, which is not good. But these strikes have been carried out by Israel to prevent the transfer of weapons from Iran through Syria to Lebanon, where it reaches Hezbollah. So Israel have consistently done that. Now, during this Hamas or Gaza conflict, Hezbollah has ramped up these activities. One, receiving weapons from the East, and two, trying to use rhetoric and other ground forces to challenge the military hegemony, so to speak, of Israel. Eventually, when Israel found out that, well, they've done the lot they could in Gaza, they started amassing forces in their northern front, which is facing southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah is well entrenched or well established. And the result is what we see. But most importantly, and which is important to this topic, the decapitation strategy by Israel. Now, decapitation has been used for millennia, thousands of years, where forces feel that, well, instead of attacking the people, let's take the leadership. And when the leadership is taken out, it creates that kind of organizational confusion. So a counterattack may be expected, but not be as strong as if the leader were to be alive. And two, there's going to be legitimacy challenges, because anyone who succeeds the leader may not have that legitimacy that the leader had. And so that is very important to note that it has been there. And in years past or centuries ago, we find when armies met, the leaders of the armies, and we've seen that in movies, and we've read it in stories, history books, that leaders met, and then the leader that fell will often have his army decimated, because then the morale and the kind of zeal to fight the enemy is lost when the leader is not around. However, as a writer, I have been skeptical when it comes to the use of decapitation as a counter-terrorism measure or conflict tool, because then the successors are often more brutal and more aggressive than their predecessors. They would like to establish a point. They would like to also push away their internal rivals by becoming more aggressive. And so I have often talked against decapitation, that, well, if you need to negotiate, you would have to negotiate with leaders. You can't negotiate with grassroots and foot soldiers. So you need the leader alive in order to reach some peace. So when you get him off, you create a situation where anybody could succeed. And when we don't have a strong leader, there's a decentralized system where you have so many leaders who may be causing more harm than good.
Yes.
So that has been my point. But currently, it looks like Israel has a broader strategy that unfortunately answers some of my questions. Because then Israel started this elimination process from the middle level of the top level of leadership of Hezbollah and Hamas. So the assassination continued. And the last time when Nasrallah was killed in Lebanon, he was killed with so many of his lieutenants. And interestingly, the one who succeeded, the deputy general secretary, was killed a few days ago. He spent 4 days in office. And so this is very radical, dramatic, and it looks like Israel is inventing a new, not inventing because it has existed, but then it's trying to adopt broadly a new approach to conflict where leaders will be eliminated. And it looks like in some way it is debatable, but it could work for the Israeli state. And it can also be very negative. Now, how would it work? The thing is this. There's a saying that if wars were to be settled by the leaders, it will not travel more than a day. So if two leaders decided to engage in war with their countries against each other, and the two leaders were allowed put in one room to fight the war, that war will not go beyond a day, because then if one eliminates the other, the war ends. This, if you transfer that to my argument, it looks like then leaders who are the decision makers and who may prolong wars and who may give orders are themselves facing existential threats. For instance, the Ayatollah was reportedly placed in a safe haven or a safe place before the missile attacks against Israel. So putting all this together, across 1 year, Israel has taken decisions and engaged in activities that makes it appear stronger than ever before. Thank you.
So, sir, I agree with you because, for example, even in Hamas, most of the current members of Hamas, or even Yahya Sinwar, if he's still alive, they were orphans from the 1967 war. And the second thing is that what I want to ask you, because there's massive level of media censorship happening right now. So Tehran claimed, as you said, that 80% of its missiles, cruise missiles, had hit the target. And they also stated that Khamenei, who yesterday came out for the first time for the burial of Nasrallah, was in a safe location. At the same time, even the Israeli leaders, for example, when Iran attacked a couple of days back, even Netanyahu and his ministers were underground in a safe place in Quds city. And as they often accuse Hezbollah of using, or Hamas of using human shields, I'm not saying that they don't. They do it. All of them have their own propaganda. But even these Israeli underground ministerial safety rooms are as human shields.
Yeah.
So how does this asymmetry of, why is it not visible to everyone that all the actors are playing the propaganda card and no one cares about the humanitarian crisis that unfolds?
Yeah. So already we know where the Prime Minister of Israel is coming from. He is from the right, and Israel's right seem to have a more heavy-handed approach to countering their adversaries or the country's adversaries in the region than the left. So that is very important. So when this thing happened in October 7th and Netanyahu was in charge, everyone knew that the response that was coming wasn't going to be easy. Again, unlike Hezbollah and Hamas, Iran is a very strong state. I mean, it's a strong state. Iran should not be underestimated. Iran has been developing its ballistic missile technology for decades. Even under sanctions, it has been able to create new, missiles that reach further and faster. In fact, years ago when President Trump ordered the assassination of Soleimani, the Iranian general, the response that came from Iran, the US attested that the missiles the Iranians used in attacking a US base in Iraq were accurate and the precision was very impressive. And so Israel is not oblivious to this. And so when Israel is dealing with Iran, it is more meticulous than when it is dealing with Hezbollah and Hamas. One other thing too is this. You realize that when Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in Tehran, Israel did not own up to it. And the reason is that it is an act of war. And up to today, not even Netanyahu would go to the UN or anywhere to boast that I have eliminated Haniyeh, because immediately you accept it's an act of war. So there's this, what we call strategic ambiguity. It's not saying yes, it's not saying no, but we all know who did it. But that serves into the PR interest of the mullahs in Tehran. Because if Israel is not holding claim, then we cannot stretch this so much. And therefore, we pretend that we pretend that even though we know that they did it, since they are not rubbing it on our faces, it's okay. That works in their PR. That is because then in Iran, you always have the domestic audience and the external audience. Always the regime in Iran want to show strength to its domestic audience because it knows that in recent times there have been protests, there have been a lot of internal agitations and things like that. And they wouldn't want to look weak in front of their audience. So that is very important to note so that we don't mistaken that to be total weakness on the part of Iran. They know they have to manage some of these things very well. Now in April, the Iranian attack on Israel, you could see that it was more of a choreographed way of just showing some force and not necessarily attacking Israel. But this last attack was very ferocious. And if you look at the way F-35 jets were targeted in Israel, then it meant that This time around, Iran meant business because it's one of the most important allies, Hassan Nasrallah, has been eliminated. That affected Iran so much because Hassan Nasrallah is almost like the ambassador at large for Iran in the Levant. When Assad was facing crisis in the early 2011s and 2012, it was Hassan Nasrallah who stepped in to keep him in power, together with Russian bombardment and all that. So Hassan Nasrallah's death really meant a lot to the Ayatollah and his lieutenants. Another thing that we should also note is that in Iran, there are dynamics. Iran currently has a reformist president. And Iran, when you say this, then it means that this is a leader because we don't run a party system, but we have individuals who are either reformist or conservative. Raisi, the late president who died in the helicopter crash, was a conservative. But the current president is a moderate or a reformist. And so he has been able to rein in on the radicals to manage Israel meticulously so as not to draw unnecessary attention from them or to create a situation where Iran is at a total war. Because domestically, the country is not as united as it wants to be, the regime wants. However, after the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, most of his argument will fall on deaf ears because that was an escalation. Using about 85 bunker busters and firing them at the same time to get him was very, very, very radical. And the Iranians could not help but to respond. Yeah.
I'm still, a bit flabbergasted. I don't know because we have not seen the body. We have seen the burial, but we don't know whose. So I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I still think that there's a lot of ambiguity regarding Nasrallah's death, just as Osama's death.
So to that, I would say that I'll bet everything on it that he's no more.
Okay.
Yes. What I know is that Israel itself, the IDF wouldn't consistently, if you study the IDF, when they say that someone is gone, is gone. Because one, they are very good. When they hit, they have intelligence on the ground to confirm whether the thing is done or not. And again, in Lebanon, Lebanon is not like Iran. In Iran, you have broad anti-Israeli sentiment, especially from the regime and its supporters. But in Lebanon, Hezbollah has enemies in Lebanon or opponents in Lebanon.
Yes.
The Christian Lebanese and the Sunni Lebanese do not want Hezbollah to be as strong as it is.
Yes.
And arguably, Hezbollah is more of a force than the regular army of Lebanon. And that is not also sitting down well with some of the military high command. And so Israel is likely to have more cooperation in Lebanon than many people would expect.
Yes.
And so when they come out to say that someone is gone, is gone. And in fact, Hezbollah coming out to say that Hassan Nasrallah is deceased, they mean it. He is, yeah.
May God bless his soul. And right now, what has happened 2 hours back is the Islamic resistance of Iraq has announced that it has targeted 3 important Israeli positions in north of occupied Palestine with drones. Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi has met the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in Damascus on Saturday. Bashar Zafri, the Syrian ambassador to Russia, announced on Saturday that Russia has applied for BRICS membership. But the most interesting point is how Russia is acting. Because now Russia is giving very in-depth, detailed satellite images to Iran.
Yeah.
About Israel.
So this war cannot become just a regional conflict. It goes beyond the region. Israel has an unflinching supporter in the United States. Now, with what is happening in Ukraine, even though Russia in the past has often played it very cool with Israel, in recent times, it's no more the case because then it has received significant support from Iran and China and others. So there's this kind of a coalition that is being formed, that is alliance that is being formed. And with Iran supplying Russia with drones and other weaponry, Russia will not sit idle to watch Iran do this alone. So it's more like a symbiotic relationship that they are both having. And definitely Russia would, if Iran requests that and Russia should refuse it, it would be surprising.
Yeah.
But it is not surprising at all that Russia is cooperating with Iran. Again, Russia has had former cooperations or other cooperations with Iran in Syria. For Assad to stay in office, it required Russian and Iranian cooperation, as well as Hezbollah. So, and then again, you come back to Hassan Nasrallah. Hassan Nasrallah is one strong link in that alliance that has been taken away. And Putin will not be happy that Hassan Nasrallah is gone. Because when Russia was providing the air bombardment against rebels in Syria, it was the Hezbollah fighters who were doing the groundwork and who were used to the terrain in Syria. And so Russia cannot stay aloof. Doing so at this time will depict an ambivalent ally, and nobody wants that. Yes, so that is going to happen. Yeah.
Also, sir, yesterday it came in the news that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait have declared neutrality. And they will not allow US to use their air bases against Iran. So, do you think that this can sustain this kind? Obviously, the 1973 oil embargo is not possible in today's globalized world, because it will even have very negative ramifications for Saudi Arabia and other oil-producing countries economically. But do you think that the GCC countries can sustain it? Because US can put a lot of direct and indirect pressure in various ways.
Okay, so this is also very interesting. After the barrage of missiles against Israel, the GCC states, most of them come out to say, we are neutral. That says a lot. That, they all monitored the firing of the missiles. And they saw that even though the Israel's Arrow defense system and other defense systems that they have, the Arrow 1, Arrow 2, and others, were effective in ensuring that they didn't have casualties. They saw that Iran indeed has some capabilities to fire at Israel. And these countries do not have that kind of air defenses that Israel has in terms of efficiency. And these countries are bigger. Israel, we know, relatively, is a relatively small territory. But Saudi Arabia, for instance, is very big. And some time ago, drones allegedly from Iran were used against Saudi oil infrastructure. And so these countries that are close, especially the Gulf, those that are close to the Persian Gulf, wouldn't want to spook Iran or wouldn't want to look like they are supporting Israel against Iran, because then they are likely to be reached by the shortest range of missiles that Iran has.
Yeah.
Yes, so they are not going to sell that kind of security for Israel sacrifice, because, and again, they know that Israel can handle its own affairs. And so they wouldn't want to be playing sidekick who may suffer more than the main target. Again, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others were in Yemen. And in Yemen, they saw how Iran incessantly supported the Houthis against them until such time that they withdrew from Yemen. And so they know that after everything, the US is thousands of miles away. Israel itself is very much secure because, the Israeli defense forces are very efficient. And so, doubting their own capabilities in the long term, they wouldn't want to be seen to be hobnobbing with Israel. Again, they are also thinking about their populations. Despite the governments of these states not liking Iran or upset about the activities of Iran in the region, their populations are actually for the Palestinian cause. And so sometimes they do not want to spook their populations. So some of these neutrality and things like that is to sometimes appease their own populations. Because when the population gets really radical, they can do anything. Yeah. No matter, how many bullets can you shoot? So these are some of the things that would make these governments very meticulous in their approach to the situation in Israel. That notwithstanding, I don't see any serious threat against Israel in the short term. Yeah.
So, sir, like for example, when Iran attacked Israel a couple of days back, the information that I have, and I might not be correct, is that only 4 of Iron Domes were left. Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 were malfunctioned. The missiles were aimed at Mossad headquarters and military bases in Israel. At the same time, there are a lot of news that is now emerging that Israel had faced more damage than it is currently accepting or reporting. Blood banks, which were open from before, are more functional now. But what do you say about Israel employing African asylum seekers to fight in this conflict?
Yeah. So the employment of Africans in war zones across the world is something I've written on. And I have challenged the socioeconomic problems that exist in Africa and how youth are left with no choice than to fall prey to armies that are fighting dangerous wars. So in Ukraine, Russia has recruited some. The Ukrainian side has also recruited Africans. And currently we are talking about Israel. And the thing is that these wars are all very dangerous wars. And so when you are going to fight them, the risk is always high. You are not joining maybe the French army or the UK army that is not fighting any active war currently, so that you could maybe find yourself in some submarine or some warship and tour the world and come back and all that. You are in a battle, a hot spot for conflict. I mean, people are dying, and if you don't take care, you become cannon fodder. So what I think is that we live in an information world. Africans who are being recruited to fight these wars must be well abreast in what they are going for. I mean, we all want to take risks, but some risks are very, dangerous ones. And so you must be able to follow the news. For instance, I was recently advising some people that, right, in Ukraine, many people had expected that Russia was going to defeat Ukraine overnight. And in Africa, people have that kind of perception that Russia is that big giant who is invincible and can crush anybody on its way. So when the African is joining the Russian army, he feels that he's going to have a smooth ride. He's going to have a first day and perhaps retire with some huge money and come back home. They don't know that the Ukrainians have the HIMARS, which is the HIMARS, batteries that are fighting the Russians. They don't know that the Ukrainians are using sophisticated drones, and that is killing many, many Russian forces. They don't know. And so they go and become cannon fodder to the Russians. And similarly, if you fought on the side of Ukraine, you face that same challenge, because then the Russians are not also some ideal forces. They have all the necessary weaponry that will help them fight. And so you become the cannon fodder for the Ukrainian side as well. So with that, I think that much of this will fall in the hands of the victim themselves. Apart from the socioeconomic problems, you must be abreast with what is happening in order to know that the choice you are making is worth making.
Yeah. That is, it's also from the Indian diaspora. It happened. There were a few members from very small very lower socio-economic background of India in the villages of North India who were, trapped to be soldiers in the Russian army. And they didn't know once they went there, and it was a massive upheaval in the news cycle. Right now, as it happens, a Hebrew language source has reported that 10 IDF soldiers were injured in Hezbollah missile attack in Lower Galilee in northern occupied Palestine. and there are missile sirens running in Carmel, Shaknin, and surrounding areas of central Jalil region, which is north of Israel. My next question to you, sir, is that whenever I want to try to explain it to the audience about what are the reasons why Iran is involved, there are two things that I am not able to explain. First is the question that Israeli scholars themselves ask, or not scholars, ministers, which is that we have never attacked Iran. Why is Iran attacking us? We have not attacked their territory. That is the first question. Okay. And the second question is, don't you feel that be it Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, or and even the Houthis, they are using the cause of Palestinian self-determination for their own goals and propaganda?
Okay, so the first one, if an Israeli asks that we have not attacked Iran, why should Iran attack us? The whole thing has to do with a country that is trying to exude influence and power. Now, Iran sees itself as a regional leader, just as Saudi Arabia sees itself, and Turkey also sees itself similarly. Now, Egypt also sees itself as a regional leader. Now, after the Camp David Accords that brought Israel and Egypt to the peace table, and they both agreed not to attack each other, the Egyptian leadership, or leadership in the coalition against Israel, was diminished. I mean, it was no more because there has been peace, and U.S. had guaranteed that. Thanks to President Jimmy Carter, who recently was had his 100th birthday. But the issue here is this: after that, around the same time as the Egyptians signed the peace accord, the Iranian Revolution happened in 1979. And so, all of a sudden, Iran assumed that position that Egypt was no more occupying. That is one. Two, Iran saw itself as the leader of the Shiite network in the Middle East. So the majority of Shiite in Iraq, minority Shiite in Syria, and then the Shiite in Lebanon were all seen by Iran as their leader. Because this is the first time, because in Shia Islam, we have the quietist school of thought, and we have this political school. They believe in politics. So if you know of Ayatollah Sistani, he is in Iraq. He is more of the quietist school. He is not interested in politics. He leaves religion. But in Iran, they merge politics with religion. And that's how the Ayatollah became the head of state, more or less, of Iran. And since then, Iran seems to see itself as the guardian of Islam, and especially Shia Islam. So after that diminished role by Egypt, Iran occupied that naturally. And ever since has been seen itself as the revolutionary arm of the Islamic states in the region. That aside, it also competes with the Sunni leadership, that is Saudi Arabia and other Sunni states. And so whenever these Sunni states seem to be warming up to Israel, Iran sees itself as, no, we are still with the Palestinian cause and we are the radicals, and by extension support the radical elements in the Palestinian cause, which is Hamas. Because Iran will definitely not like the way Abbas approaches issues. Iran supports Hamas in doing what it was doing in Gaza. And so this is the issue with Iran. And so Iran is not necessarily saying that Israel has attacked it. It's saying that it is supporting the radicals in Israel, in Palestine, to fight for territory. and or the legitimacy of the Palestinian cause. That is how Iran has it. So it's sided with the radicals. If this explains it. Now, with your second question is about taking advantage of the Palestinian cause. Yes, if Iran has taken that position, it means that any other ally of Iran is automatically taking the position. So the Houthi, how did Houthis start attacking ships in the Red Sea? They say, well, if you are in Gaza, until you draw from Gaza, we are not going to stop attacking the ships. And so far, they have posed unprecedented threats to international trade in that corridor. And all these guys take inspiration from Iran. And so I wouldn't want to rush to say that they are taking advantage of the conflict, but I would say that the conflict is actually allowing them to exhibit their capabilities, unfortunately. Because how should international trade suffer because of Gaza? Well, the issue is this. There are many countries that are using the Red Sea that have nothing to do with what is happening in Gaza. Why should those countries suffer? And so some closer allies with Iran, like China, are uncomfortable with what is happening in the Red Sea. But the Houthi are known to be very obstinate and very resilient in their actions. So that is something that is another food for thought that we will have to maybe keep asking ourselves. But by and large, I believe that the forces in the region are led by Iran. If there's going to be any peace, and I've written that there is the possibility of rapprochement between Israel and Iran, if you look at the broader picture. And if these two countries agree, a lot of things will become in the region.
Yeah, I mean, like when Saudi Arabia and Iran could have,
yes,
even though it is very fragile, but still, if China could bring them together, then why not Iran and Israel? And Iran was one of the first countries that recognized Israel when it was established. So that is also very interesting how times change,
Yeah, it's because of the regime. Because at the time, the regime was a different regime.
Yeah.
As of 1948, we didn't have the Ayatollah as the supreme leader. That started in 1979.
Yeah.
So as a state, it recognized Israel. And interestingly, Iran has one of the oldest Jewish populations on earth.
Yeah.
That many people don't look at. But they have one of the oldest. Yeah. Judaism is very strong in Iran.
Yes. And that is why the Pahlavi family is taking advantage of the current crisis, and all the podcasts and video broadcasts are all that, why Iran is going weaker and weaker. And a lot of, the Iranian diaspora, which had to by force migrate, are supporting the Pahlavi family very strongly. That, and Netanyahu is also sending, direct love letters to the people of Iran, like through Twitter, talking in English that I'm not against you. And it is all very, like Game of Thrones kind of episode per episode happening. So my next question to you is that, which is asked by one of my colleagues, Dr. Abu Zafar. He is asking about how compatible the Iron Dome or other defense system is. For example, we just know that there's an Iron Dome in Israel. So what is an Iron Dome? Like, can you just explain that what an Iron Dome is? Where is it placed? And Hezbollah and Houthis it will cost them $400, $500 to make a rocket. But every interceptor missile that the Iron Dome uses, it is $40,000 US. So there is, they're losing more by actually targeting these $400, $500 missiles.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one U.S. general said that logistics is everything when it comes to war. And to start with, Israel would have unending supply of resources, as far as it maintains the U.S. as a very close ally. It's going to have that. And it has other allies, other countries that supports it. So, and it's finding itself where it finds itself, and the history that it has had over the decades, it is almost always prepared for war. And so that, in terms of the cost, of that, it looks like they are aware of it and they are prepared for it. But going back to Iron Dome, the Iron Dome is one of the technological breakthroughs in terms of the countering short-range rockets and missiles, because Israel where it was fighting an asymmetrical warfare, and as you said, very cheap rockets could be fired from someone's window to the next Israeli settlement or town, and then it could cause a problem. But with the Iron Dome, these short range missiles and rockets are able to be intercepted. So these are distributed in strategic places across the country in order to counter flying rockets in the short range. So in the last attack by Iran, the Iron Dome was almost useless because it was not created for long range missiles, which leaves the atmosphere like ballistic missiles that leave the atmosphere and re-enters the atmosphere with a high speed. It was not created for that. So the Arrow 1 and 2 were responsible, and the sling, the David sling were responsible for countering these missiles, and not the Iron Dome. But the Iron Dome, the reason why the Iron Dome is so popular is its efficacy in countering short-range missiles and rockets, which is the main problem for Israel, and not necessarily long-range missiles. Because if it comes to long-range missiles, apart from the Arrow, the U.S. Patriot and other air defense systems could be supplied to Israel to counter some of these things. But Iron Dome is popular because of its ability to stop this, or to create that kind of a dome or protection for Israel in the short range areas.
Yeah, because the U.S. has deployed USS Abraham Lincoln right now in the Mediterranean, and a couple of other warships. And so when the Iran attack happened, and we were all just calculating that how many 400 ballistic missiles, 200, who intercepted what from where, Jordan opened their airspace, and all of that, to ensure that, just to make a statistics of how powerful the Iron Dome actually is. And also Israel is working on laser technology. But it is still in the process of being invested in and tested and all of it. This brings me to my next question. 30 days are left for the US elections now. Just 30 days.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a question I ask everyone, but I think that the answer is no. But do you think that the election result is going to make any change?
In Israel?
Yeah. The US election result in Israel.
No. Yeah, because if it is Ukraine, that is debatable. But if it is Israel, no. And putting Kamala and Trump, after the assassination of the IRGC leader in Iraq, Soleimani, he showed that he was not really for Iran. He personalizes international relations. That is Trump. When he likes you, he says it. When you are his friends, he says it. And he called the Egyptian president LCC my favorite dictator. Something that was not flattery at all. He's very open with that. Now, he doesn't like Iran. So with what is happening now, Trump would have given a blank check to Israel to deal with Iran, because he showed that he doesn't really like Iran. In fact, when Obama had some deal with Iran, he came and they reversed it. So it's something that for Trump is really going to make the situation worse. And as I've said, if you took Israel and Iran and you sat them around the table, we could reach some deal. It's not beyond them. It's not beyond them. You see, the rhetoric is always going to be very, very fierce from the regime point of view. But the Iranian government and the current president could be, open to some negotiations. And I think that is possible. That is possible. However, Kamala is going to continue the Biden thing in the Middle East. I mean, the Democrats enjoy a lot of Jewish votes in the US, and they are not going to in any way sacrifice that. So mostly they appeal to those level-headed voters among the Jewish community who say, well, maybe we need some solution. Israel cannot, be what it is. You can't live in constant insecurity. You need to talk. You need to create some, whether two-state solution or any other thing, so that, you live side by side. So we have Jewish voters in US who believe in that strongly. And then we still have the radicals. No matter what you do, they will talk about one state for Israel and nothing else. So this is so that would also play a role in what the US does over there. But I don't see any major shift in the support for Israel.
And that's the beauty of politics, that both Republicans and Democrats, they just are alike. I don't know where to differentiate. Though I do want US to have its first woman president.
Yeah.
But she also couldn't have run without a male vice presidential candidate involved. And I don't know what is the kind of pressure that she will at the same time face when it comes to funding and it comes to donations and running the campaign and everything. Because one is completely going to create a third world war. The other is very strongly anti-immigrant. But both of them can play the same role, vice versa. So as we speak, sir, now the Israeli occupation warplanes are conducting ongoing airstrikes against areas west of Jabalia camp and Beit Lahia in northern part of Gaza. 17 people have been killed today morning in Gaza since just for today. My next question, sir, is by one of our volunteers. Her name is Bushra Ali Khan. She's very hardworking and very sincere. Her question is, Qatar initially emerged as a key negotiator in the region. And before that, it was Oman. But anyway, Qatar initially emerged as a key negotiator in the region. Do you think it still holds the same relevance, or it's just background noise?
Yeah. So some time ago, I wrote an article on Qatar, and I said that what the role it plays in the Middle East is controversial, but they are essential. They are controversial, but essential. Controversial for people who feel that it entertains the radical elements in the region. For instance, when the Taliban wanted to talk to the US, it established its office in Doha. The Muslim Brotherhood is in Doha. And when you mention the Muslim Brotherhood, no Sunni monarchy would want to listen to the Muslim Brotherhood. It's a no-no. And even in Egypt, Egypt has been more aggressive towards them. So, and then Qatar houses them. In fact, Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh actually moved from Qatar to Tehran, where he died.
Yeah.
So then that is controversial. However, when it comes to the role that it plays, it's important. Look, in any situation, you need that state actor that allows listening ear to all and sundry. Because if we are going to block our ears to everyone, then it means that there will be no avenues for talks. And without avenues for talks, it means the situation is going to escalate or be a stalemate, which no one wants. Because in stalemates and escalations, we find children, women suffering, especially like we are seeing currently. So then Qatar's role is very essential. But currently, with Ismail Haniyeh gone, who is Qatar going to talk to agree to something in the Levant? It's difficult for Qatar. With Hassan Nasrallah gone, how is Qatar going to handle that? So then, even though it is open to talks, who is going to be talked to? And that is a problem. And they say the better alternative to negotiated agreement. Israel finds the elimination or the decapitation, its decapitation strategy to be a better alternative to negotiations in Qatar, or Qatar coming in to be a mediator. Because Israel feels that when they are taken out, then they weaken the institutions or the structures that are fighting them. So I think that puts Qatar in a very tight corner. And as she adds, it makes its role irrelevant over time. because then who is there to talk to? Yeah.
Yeah, Al Jazeera is there. Al Jazeera with its very few of the documentaries are so real and so horrific that I can't even have the mental strength to watch it specifically on, after October 7. Also, there's very interesting, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani when in 1996 when he started with Al Jazeera Arabic.
Yes.
Hosni Mubarak came all the way in 2000s to Doha and he saw the office of Al Jazeera and he said, all this shout from a matchbox because the office was so small. Then next year, I think after 9/11, the Qatari foreign minister had to go to US and George Bush has just given the with us or against us dialogue. Yeah. And George Bush was ready to welcome him. The diplomatic meeting was set days before. And then Pentagon, CIA, all of them took George Bush Jr. and said that, hey, this is Al Jazeera, Al Jazeera. No, Osama gives interviews to them. No. So he cancelled the meeting. And the Qatari foreign minister was very embarrassed. And that is when they came back and they said, we'll make an English language Al Jazeera. And they started with BBC and everything. At a time, Al Jazeera was called as British Boys Network. There are scholars from Cambridge that helped in. And a couple of times when the English one started having their website, it was hacked. Scholars from Cambridge University also helped in setting up Al Jazeera, making it much more global. And right now with Israel not letting Al Jazeera function from its territory, which Al Jazeera's journalists speak at every point that we are reporting from Jordan because Israel has not allowed us to enter and everything. I think Qatar is using the soft power much more strongly.
So if you look at its size, Qatar has faced a lot of challenges. The very recent one has to do when all the other GCC countries sanctioned it. And so then it was ostracized, it was isolated. And in fact, to the extent that Trump was even sympathizing with Qatar by saying that no escalation. He sent his foreign minister there. I mean, take it easy, because the U.S. base there is also very important to U.S. interest. They wouldn't want things to go overboard, and so the Sunni, most of the Sunni monarchies are worried about its closeness with Iran. That is one. And then it's seemingly neutrality at the point when they want Qatar to be with them. Qatar try to be neutral and try to be the mediator and the negotiator. So along the way, sometimes the stronger or bigger monarchies in Saudi Arabia and the UAE feel that he is trying to take the shine away from them. And in international relations, that matters a lot. If a smaller country is trying to exude some kind of influence that you think it does not deserve, the bigger ones will always try to, talk you down. Hosni Mubarak saying that, is this all noise coming from this box? It's saying a lot that, well, now we are in an information age, and so I can be in the corner of my room and say a lot of things. For instance, before this meeting, I told you that I just pick my phone and I type. And when I type, I get some audience to interact with, and that is information. Yeah, so I think that by so doing, many people, I've seen people who come to start some argument with me because of what they've heard on Al Jazeera. Then I just draw the attention that, well, every media has an interest. It has something that it's fight for. There's some fundamental interest that it goes for. However, as a listener, you have to consume with that kind of intelligence and that kind of you have to be discreet how you consume some of these things so that you don't end up churning out anything you consume. So that is very important. That is very important. However, I think that something like there was a recent one where Al Jazeera was trying to show how Gaza, the Hamas from Gaza invaded Israeli territories and killed people, and it's trying to reenact it. And I mean, it's so uncomfortable, So some of these things need to be watched so that it wouldn't look like you've taken a position and your professionalism is compromised, because you may do some other good documentaries that may be very good, but then the ones that you took those radical positions could taint the very objective ones. Yeah.
No, No, it's very, because manufacturing consent specifically in a conflict is a very difficult position. Specifically, when you speak at a media channel, everyone has their own funding and their own agenda, and it becomes very difficult. Over the period of time, I have started to feel that. Apart from the Palestinians, everyone else is talking about them. And very few Palestinians have a large-scale Twitter following. Few Palestinian doctors have. Most of them don't, because the eSIM is not available for everyone. The internet is not available for everyone. They have to trek high and then go and get the signal and everything. So what I have started to feel slowly is that apart from the Palestinians, everyone else is talking about them. And everyone else is creating idea, creating discourse, creating some kind of judgment. And because this topic itself is so complex, it's, all like, it has to be understood from the birth of Judaism, actually, over the period of time to come to, how many times, they had to, their temple, first time, second time, the temple was devastated, how they had to migrate to Europe and many other countries in Middle East and West Asia. Then the, establishment of Christianity, later Islam. Islam is comparatively the most recent religion in the region, but over the period of time, how these conversions took place. Even the Armenians, for example, in East Jerusalem, how they are being targeted, and Turkey's role in Armenian genocide. So all of these are very difficult to grasp. Like for me, at night, specifically, because this has happened for the last 1 week, every night after 1 o'clock, because we are 2.5 hours ahead of Lebanon, the bombardment starts. So it's 2:30 at night, and suddenly, stories about white phosphorus being used. Stories about, but at least Lebanese have more social media, internet coverage, so they're able to write about it, what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, thank you so much, I'm very happy to have your presence. It's very empowering to have a scholar like you to speak to us. And it is, I feel very proud, like I can tell my professor from Ghana that, look, I did this. So I feel that kind of, happiness. And I hope that you continue to empower and talk and debate. And I hope you have more people who misunderstand you and you make them understand. And, you keep having this kind of ups and downs and debates every day, so that you shine and polish and become a global voice for risk and security analysis, not only for Ghana or Africa, but for the world. So, and you can have your lunch now. I give my permission.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. The questions have been insightful, because then it has really brought my mind to some dimension that I've not even looked at. And I believe that this platform is a great one that is going to help others to also share their views. And anytime that it becomes necessary that I have to reappear, I'm ever ready to do so. Thank